I took a small dose of psilocybin, like a microdose of psilocybin, instead of choosing the alternative of ending my life. So when I was younger, I was that ADHD kid, trouble kid, like always getting into trouble. Very, very smart, did very, very well in school except for English. I am part dyslexic, so I always struggled with spelling, grammar, those types of things. But it was a positive thing for me as well because it made me turn into a better speaker. That was kind of like my childhood, really good childhood. Parents were really good. Obviously, the normal things growing up where we argue with our parents. I ended up hurting my knee when I was 18, and I got put on Oxycontin morphine for the pain. But what ended up happening was I ended up getting addicted to Oxy, so I started selling it and then selling it to make money, to buy just a TV, and then selling it to support my habit, and then selling it to not even support my habit, but like using way more. So I ended up becoming heavily addicted to Oxy when I was about 18. And then I battled with addiction from about 18 to 25. In and out of rehabs, would get 9 months clean, 3 months clean, all this kind of stuff. Before I got heavily into my addiction, I started selling cars, and I became one of the top car salesmen for Ford and was doing really well. So I had things going for me in life, but I always kept turning back to heroin. Oxy produced into heroin, then heroin went from meth, and then I ended up becoming homeless. So I ended up going from super successful to just completely sabotaging my life with this active addiction. And I ended up going into many rehabs all over the place. And so, like, you know, the guys that you see on the corner tweaking, moving around, like those guys, that was me. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was nothing fancy of an addict. I was a gross, disgusting. I was sick. I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of. It took me a long time to clean up. And the last time that I cleaned up, I was suffering with a lot of mental illnesses, ADHD, depression, PTSD now because of what I was doing in my active addiction, what was happening in my active addiction. So I ended up cleaning up, and how I cleaned up is I got put into a psych ward, and I had been in this psych ward many times, and so they usually just would kick me out at the end of it. But I got one lovely lady who was like at the end of her term, so like she was about to like retire, and so the board was like, we don't want him here, and she was like, I don't give a shit. Like, because she talked to me and she's like, okay, there's something here. So she ended up locking me up in there for a while, putting me on methadone, helping me come off, and actually getting me into a rehab. I was super grateful for her. She put her neck out for me, and I didn't want to disobey that. So I stayed about 9 months in there, and then I went out into the rehab, and I stayed in the rehab for 9 months. I wasn't from Calgary, so they let me stay there. So I was able to like grow, do more therapy, all that kind of stuff. So I was about 3 years clean. I've been out of the rehab for a year and some now, but like the whole time I was depressed. Like I was like faking it till you make it, you know what I mean? Like I was clean and sober, but I wasn't grateful. I wasn't really here. Like I felt like I was just existing. And so I felt like there was something in me that was like wanted me to do greater things or better things or help people, you know? And that's my nature. So I was working in healthcare at the time as an HCA, which is like below a nurse, like a healthcare aide is what the thing is. I used to work with brain injury and dementia patients. Super depressed in an unhealthy relationship and felt like I was trapped. For months I was struggling and I was just like, that's it, I'm done. I cleaned up for this. Why did I clean up? Like I hate my life even more. Like, so, well, to a certain extent, I was really suffering in the same amount that I was suffering on the street. And so I was watching a lot of Joe Rogan at the time. So I seen Paul Stamets on there, and he started talking about mushrooms. And so I was at a point where like I was ready to end it. They really preach in these programs they can't take anything, all that kind of stuff. That's a relapse, all that kind of stuff, which necessarily I don't think is always true with certain things, and it's why I'm really pushing for research on this stuff. Because what I did is I took a small dose of psilocybin, like a microdose of psilocybin, instead of choosing the alternative of ending my life. And so I took that small dose and I left the house. And for me, that was insane at the time because I was so depressed, and my PTSD sometimes, especially when it's rampant, I don't want to leave the house. I have too much fear. Like I can't open the door. There's like a lock. Like it's not locked, but it feels like it's locked. And so I left the house very simply. I thought, okay, interesting. And I walked down to the river and I sat on a park bench, and all of a sudden, like, my head became very clear for me, like as if I took like an ADHD medication. And then I was presented with like myself asking myself questions, but like from such like a loving, open, non-judgmental place that it was just beautiful, man. Because like I sat there and I really sat there just with myself, looking at myself, not judging myself, and just asking myself simple questions. At the time I was smoking a lot of cigarettes, and so I was sitting on this park bench smoking, and I looked at the cigarette and I was like, why am I smoking? What does it actually do for me? And I couldn't actually come out with a really good reason. And so for me, that was huge. All of a sudden, I had lost all of this like fear during this process, during this experience. Why don't you want to exercise? Well, because I'm afraid of what people will think about me, or how they view me, or I don't want to go to the gym because I feel insecure. Well, you feel insecure because you're not going to the gym. If you would just slowly go to the gym, you would feel... And this is like exactly how it was like presented to me. I find like I always have my own answers, but whether or not I'm intaking them from myself. So for me, this was a really like open experience where it was like, hey man, I love you. It's almost like I was saying I love you to myself. Or like looking at myself like through my mother's eyes. It doesn't matter what you've done. How can we progress you? How can we help you get forward? And that's what it felt like. But it also felt like it wasn't me saying it to me. It felt like it was something else saying it to me. Like I was sitting down and having a conversation with somebody else. And so after that moment, a lot of stuff started changing. I started microdosing probably once a week, maybe twice a week after this. I got out of the unhealthy relationship that I was in. I moved out. I started exercising and going to the gym every day. It was crazy, and it was just one little small psilocybin thing. I quit smoking for 9 months. Unfortunately, I went back to smoking cigarettes, but when I do microdose, I don't smoke, which is crazy. There's something going on there that I really want to look at for addiction. In saying that, I don't think a microdose is a cure for anyone. What I think it is it's a way to really look at yourself or look at what's going on in an open way. It's almost like going through like 10 years of therapy in one day. Or one session, and looking at yourself and being like, okay, this is what I need to change. And it's almost like I view it as a tool. So it's like, okay, this is just a tool to help me. It's not a tool to abuse or misuse or those kind of things. I just take it as a tool. So if I'm struggling or anything like that, that's kind of when I take it. Was love for myself. That was the number one thing. It was like, it's okay for your past, because I had done a lot of things that I still struggled with forgiving myself for, and that really opened it up. But the crazy thing was that, like I said, like there was a connection to something bigger than me, or to connection to almost everything. So like as people were walking by, dogs, all of this stuff, I felt completely safe. Normally, if I was outside, because of my past, because of living on the street, I have a lot of like, who's behind me, what's going on here, very overactive mind of watching everything that's going on, but from a fearful state. And so for me, this was completely different, because now I'm just sitting on this park bench and I'm not wondering what this person's thinking. I'm not wondering if this person's a threat. I'm just looking at it and looking at everybody passing by, and they're just humans. And they're not here to hurt me. I even petted a dog because a dog came up to me and I was like, do you mind? Because I love dogs. And they're like, yeah. And then I had like a 10-minute conversation with this person. I couldn't tell you what we talked about, but I had like a 10-minute conversation with this person, just a random person. And for me at that time, I hadn't done that in a very long time. Normally when I go out, headphones in, I'm very standoffish, kind of back offish from people. I don't want to make eye contact, those kind of things. And here people were walking by and I was smiling at them. That was really, really cool. The other big thing was the working out thing. When I was presented with the question, like, why are you so scared to go to the gym? I honestly answered. I honestly think that when I'm at there, people are looking at me and degrading me in their mind because of the way that I degrade myself in my mind. And I was like, whoa, wait, what? So it's just my thought? That kind of opened up my eyes a little bit too, where it was just like, I'm there for me and those people are probably there for them. And so like literally like a week later, I got a gym membership and started going. And I can tell you that there was a lot of fear. Like it wasn't like I still had like, because I wasn't microdosing very often. It was just at this point, like I started microdosing regularly, maybe like I would say a year after that. Because after I took that first dose of psilocybin, I really didn't mess with them. I just researched them. The gym thing was really cool because not only was I afraid to go there, right, and do it, but I pushed through it. It wasn't like those mental blockages that I normally would hit and would send me back home. So I would drive to the gym, drive back home. Wasn't there. I just pulled up, locked in. walked down to the gym. Once again, didn't feel afraid of the people that I was talking to, even asked some guys for some help, and yeah, just started working out. The fact that I was just able to easily, I wouldn't say easily do it, but there was still like these barriers. I broke down those barriers so much more easier because all of a sudden I had this like belief in myself. That was huge for me because like I was in such a depressed state, and I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but if you're depressed, you don't even want to get out of bed, let alone brush your teeth or those kind of things. So all of a sudden I started doing all these self-esteemable acts after this experience. I stopped smoking, I started taking better care of myself, I started watching when I was eating, and I started getting to the gym. So like those things alone just boosted my mental health even more. So it was like that psilocybin experience, that small microdose that I took on that park bench just opened me up to all of the knowledge that I already had from going through therapies and rehabs, and it was just like, you can do this. So like, go do it. So I started to love myself. I really started to believe in myself. And then I actually got up from the park bench and I walked for like not very long, maybe like 10 minutes, and sat down on another park bench. I felt like I went to another place. Like it wasn't like I was sitting at the same river just a little bit over. I felt like I went to another place, and there was all these more loving people walking by me, and I was in a different area, even though it was like the same one. But the cool thing was I felt this energy or this space between us that made me feel safe. So it was like I could feel that they were loving, and this person was loving, and there was no fear. And when a homeless person walked in front of me, I didn't feel pity or anything like that. I felt love. I felt like, you know, like you can do it too. Like that was my thought. Like I was looking at everyone, like I said, like with my mother's eyes, but not only everyone, but myself. And then that kind of led into the end of it. But at the end of it, the mushrooms said to me, they said, if you don't believe in us, that's okay, because we believe in you. And so like that changed a lot, because when you don't have that belief or that confidence in yourself, you feel like nobody does. And so it was a really cool way to hear, I don't care if you don't believe in us, because we believe in you. Definitely hit me emotionally. Still does every time I talk about it, because I feel like I go back into that place where they said it, and it was very uplifting. Don't give up. There are ways out. Sometimes it's hard to find those ways, but if you ask people for help and listen to what people have to say when you ask them for help, I think you'll find there's a lot of people that have been through what you're going through, and they don't want to see you go through what you're going through. I would just recommend reaching out if you are struggling, and I would also recommend honestly listening to that person that you reach out to, because they're just trying to help you. Don't give up. I believe in you. If I can do this, man, anybody can do this. And that was one of the things that I got from that microdose experience was, shit, if this can help me, man, this can help a lot of people, because I felt like I was the worst of the worst. Nobody can help me, and I've tried everything, and I've tried your SSRIs, and I did ECT, and I still feel like this. These routine thoughts and behaviors that we have that we get sucked into, they're not permanent. You can change. There's light. I know how it feels to sit there and not see a future. If you were to tell me that I would be going around and speaking on stages, at art shows, talking and sharing my psychedelic experience, that I would be paying for people's psychedelic experiences through a really cool NFT project that I co-founded, if you told me that 3 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. There's no way I would have believed it. There's no way. Start small and just work on little bits that you can every day, and just slowly implement them. And I find that helped me hugely. Biggest thing is, like they said to me, if you don't believe in yourself, that's okay, because there's so many people that believe in you. When I first started taking psychedelics, I didn't think it would have such a huge impact on my life. I thought it would just be like, almost like, you know, you smoke weed, you feel better for the day, or you feel better for the week, or whatever it is. But this was huge. Like, my whole mindset changed. All of these ruts that I had created, or barriers that I had created in my mind, they were gone. And it opened me up to a person that I hadn't been in years. Like, it brought me back to like myself, positive, uplifting, go-getter, passionate about what he's doing. One, I wouldn't be here if I didn't take. I guarantee you I wouldn't have made it to where I am. Two, when you believe in yourself, there's so much cool stuff that you can do, or at least try, because there's no fear. The fear is gone. Like, you still have rational fears, like, you know, if a tiger's running at you, you're gonna be a little freaked out, but you don't have these irrational barriers I don't have these irrational barriers in my mind anymore, and that is what has made all of the difference from going to creating an idea. So like, after I took these things, I started really believing in myself.